Hello, everybody. I'm Kate Cass, and welcome to our edition of Let's Talk About. Today, let's talk about 2025. Not gonna lie, I don't really have a snappy way to sum up 2025 in the world of entertainment, because it was kind of all over the place, reaching new highs and new lows, and it was either a year of renewal for the world of visual media, or the same trash we've been getting for years, depending on who you ask. I kinda just want to get to the part where I talk about the things I enjoy the most, especially since I'm late to the party on doing a year-end recap, as per usual. Quick reminder of how this works: the only thing a piece of entertainment has to do to qualify for the list is be released in 2025. Movies, new TV shows, or new seasons of existing shows are all eligible to make the cut. I've also decided that in order for a new season to count, the season finale has to have aired in 2025. I think that'll be the most fair going forward. And as always, the standard disclaimer that these are just my picks. My list is likely going to vary quite a bit from yours, especially since I am very bad at watching current stuff in a timely fashion for various reasons, so please let me know what your favorite entertainment of the year was in the comments. Alright then, let's dive into my best of list from the past year. These are my top 12 favorite pieces of entertainment from 2025. But why top 12? Because with this much great stuff, you really expect me to only pick 10? Let's start this countdown with... Number 12. Wicked for Good. Yeah, I'm kinda sad how much further down this one is compared to the first one too. As much as I lament that I often neglect movies that come out later in the year for these lists because I'm not able to see them in theaters, I did want to make sure I saw Wicked for Good after how much I loved the first one. It's one of the reasons this video is so late. But in the months I was waiting, I was hearing less than promising things. A massive critical downgrade that was felt all through the holidays. Now, having seen it for myself, I can kind of understand what happened. Wicked Part 1 added a couple of extra scenes and extended one song, but it mainly focused on giving existing scenes a chance to breathe with the longer runtime. This one adds a lot of extra stuff. Lots of new scenes, 2 original songs, and changing lyrics to a couple of the existing songs, which really bothers me. I hate when they do that. So yes, Wicked for Good has a lot of the general padding and adjustments that people don't tend to like in movie musicals. But alongside that is still the same beautiful presentation and now iconic performances from the first one. Everyone involved caring for the material so deeply, working hard to do it justice as best they can. Realizing the shocking twists and turns of its more dramatic second half in a way that still gets the same effect, even as they get more ambitious and make their own contributions. And to be clear, not all the additions they made were bad. I like how Elphaba's animal rights plot is given more attention and the extra time dedicated to Glinda's arc, and bringing what was already there from the stage version to the big screen is exceptionally done. No Good Deed in particular blew me away, one of my new favorite sequences in a movie musical. I could talk about this one for a while, honestly. There were parts of this that disappointed me, especially as a big fan of Wicked's second act, but I think at the end of the day, it delivered another overall satisfying experience that shows what makes Wicked so beloved to a wider audience. And if an adaptation does that, it's done its job. I can't say they changed it for the better, but they certainly changed it for good. Number 11. Sinners. Some are gonna be glad I finally got off my ass and watched this. Others are going to be disappointed that it's this low. Look, I'm sorry. I think this one didn't click with me as much as it did a lot of others because I'd been absorbing the hype for 6 months beforehand instead of getting an unexpected banger like most moviegoers did. Kind of like how I felt about Barbie a few years ago. But even with that in mind, I cannot deny how compelling, suspenseful, and downright mesmerizing Sinners can be. Ryan Coogler is swiftly becoming a can do no wrong kind of director, and the double, or in the case of this movie I suppose, triple threat of him and Michael B. Jordan is a proven successful combination for a powerful piece. For the first half, it's a solid enough drama with a somewhat unsettling underbelly. Good, but nothing groundbreaking. I was waiting to see the thing that was hyping people up so much. And once it came, the movie accelerated quickly into a tale of standing your ground and preserving what is rightfully yours against a monstrous force trying to siphon it for selfish reasons. We love ourselves a supernatural threat being used as an allegory for race issues. Tale as old as time. It's disturbing, unique, and definitely something that got people talking. It's not the kind of movie I've delved too deeply into, but I've seen a lot of thoughtful pieces discussing aspects of Sinners and the praise of how it conveys its themes in a way way that it trusts its audience to follow. Like the original song, I Lied to You. I admittedly wasn't too into it initially, but it wasn't until I saw it perform at the Oscars that I saw the haunting majesty of the piece. And I think that sums up Sinners well. I didn't get that into it, but I'm curious how it holds up on a second viewing, and it's been fascinating to dive into others' analysis of it. That's part of the reason why it made the list. It's a movie that excites, resonates, and speaks to audiences of all kinds. It's a triumph in horror, black cinema, and for original screenplays, proving that they have a place to thrive in the modern landscape if given the means and opportunity to do so. The best part is that it's not even the last black-led project we'll have on this list. For instance, Number 10. Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, Season 2B. A series worth being on my favorites list until the very end, and I couldn't be happier about that. Well, I'd be happier if there were going to be more seasons, but beggars can't be choosers. For the 2 seasons we got, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur is easily one of the best Disney animated shows of the 2020s. The first half of season 2 already raised the bar and set up a lot of interesting places for the rest of the season to go. Luckily, the latter half takes advantage of nearly all of it. How the revelations of the mid-season finale affect Lunella and her family in all sorts of different ways, resolving past tensions in a satisfying way, and laying down the path for what Moon Girl's future as a hero could look like. And yes, this is the batch with the infamous band episode. It's easy enough to find though, so track it down and watch it if you can. It's great, and Disney are cowards for banning it. Coupled with the same distinct presentation this series is known for, elevating both laugh-out-loud antics and contemplative and heartfelt moments of bonding, simultaneously doing more of what makes Moon Girl a great series to begin with, and taking strong new steps with the characters and their home in the LES. It results in such a satisfying progression for everyone and everything involved. By the end, the community surrounding Moon Girl feels stronger than ever, and her influence is felt deeply as she moves on to the next phase of her journey. Even if there are a couple of dangling plot threads and a character or two I wish got more resolution, it wraps things up with the core cast rather nicely, while keeping the door open for a future should that day ever come. I'm truly sad to see this show go. As I keep saying, I think it's a real hidden gem in Marvel's catalog, but I am very relieved it got a worthy send-off, even if it feels like it came far too soon. It truly was Moon Girl magic. Number 9. Severance, Season 2. Man, am I glad I jumped on this train when I did. Full disclosure, I avoided Severance for a long time because the premise, frankly, kind of creeped me out, but my mom insisted that I watch it and promised it was great, and she was absolutely right. Again, never doubt my mom. We watched the whole first season right before season 2 came out, and it's one thing to binge Severance. To sit there and watch the story unfold in real time on a weekly release schedule is something else entirely. Severance is already a deeply compelling series, commentating on capitalism, identity, and how the pursuit for happiness can be more devastating than you might think, and season 2 continues exploring those high concept questions in unique and captivating ways, exploring mysterious and surreal scenarios that, while confusing, leave you glued to the screen trying to understand. It's also meticulously designed with thought and care, even if you're not sure what direction it's going in yet. Seriously, what's with the goats? Giving us more clues to the show's overall mysteries in a satisfying way so far, as they not only answer questions while raising more, but make the stakes much higher for our protagonists, throwing more wrenches in the relationship between innies and their outies, and finding all sorts of different avenues to explore this complication from. Season 2 is pretty much confirmation for me that Severance is willing to take full advantage of the potential of its premise. It's dramatic, suspenseful, takes the time for quiet moments of contemplation and character building, and caps off with maybe one of the best season finales I've ever seen. My heart was racing, my jaw was on the ground, and it set up some great places for season 3 to go. Admittedly, it's low on this list because despite all my praise, there are a couple things that are bothering me, specifically with Helly that is making me worried about where they're taking her going forward, and more as a precaution to not get too ahead of myself. So far, Severance is one of the most brilliant shows out right now, but the story is not over yet. yet. There's a lot of pressure to make sure wherever this goes is worth all this intriguing buildup, and you know as well as I do that there's a 50-50 chance they'll finish off strong. But in terms of what we can assess right now, Severance deserves every ounce of praise it gets. Every area of it is magnificent. Just the performances, the production design, the weird twisted humor they have to it, the intriguing story development, just all of it. It's all so good, and I cannot wait to see where it all leads. Number 8. Knights of Guinevere. I've been a fan of Dana Terrace for a long time. I've been following her work ever since her time working on Gravity Falls, because it was clear from then on that as soon as her name is attached to a project, you're gonna get something impressive. So when I heard about an independent animated pilot she had created, I was so curious to see what a story would be like with Terrace working completely free of the studio system. The end result is the introduction of a rich, lavish theme park run through a complicated class system, seen through the eyes of two protagonists trying to make their dreams come true, while also throwing in a dose of mystery and horror. Oh, we are so back. I've seen a lot of people sell this show as Terrace giving a big middle finger to Disney after everything that happened, and while, yes, Park Planet is a big old allegory for a single corporation perpetuating happiness controlling the global market, I think just calling it an FU to Disney is selling it incredibly short. Knights of Guinevere has a lot to say about the pros and cons of our relationships with nostalgia that is ultimately produced and sold to us, and how it molds our path forward, whether through embracing it or rejecting it, in just 20 minutes. It sets up a lot of intriguing conflicts in the situation Andy and Frankie wind up in just this first episode, superbly establishing the world, how people deal with the park, and the Guinevere robots themselves. It's a gorgeous setting, both in the slums and the sparkles. You can understand how this world is run just by looking at it, to the point that people have already started crafting theories on how things will go if certain areas start to clash. Knights of Guinevere is Terrace at her peak, proof of what a great creative can do with full control over what they can put out there in the world. Alongside an amazing team, of course. Everyone involved with just this pilot brought their A game, and it really shows. Even for me, who first watched this pilot hunched over my phone in the break room at work. You can imagine how much I tried not to shout at those final minutes with the Guinevere robot. I'm so relieved this show has been picked up for a series, even if I'm not at all surprised. This pilot is one of the best sales pitches for a series I've seen, and I have no doubt they'll deliver an experience just as amazing, if not more, to match. Number 7. Only Murders in the Building, Season 5. Only Murders in the Building, or as I like to call it, Old Reliable. In a world filled with shows that either start off strong but fizzle out or have long gaps in production for one reason or another, Only Murders in the Building comes out once a year, has a solid episode count, releases weekly, and then has a hook for the next series. We are 5 seasons in, and I can still count on the show to remain consistently good. The key to that, I think, is not just the dynamic trio headlining it, although that certainly doesn't hurt, but that Only Murders knows how to use what makes the show work well. Only Murders in the Building has a very easy to identify bag of tricks, from how the characters interact, to how the mystery unfolds, to how to make you care about everyone involved. But it's how they tackle those things that makes each season worthwhile. This time delving into the history of the Arconia itself and how much it means to its tenants. This is the kind of show where the location has really become a character itself, and this season is all about how far those who care about it will go to protect it. On top of that, it has another great round of new characters played by a stunning group of actors. Some beloved recurring characters get more prominent roles, like the ever-endearing Meryl Streep, whose scenes with Martin Short continue to be some of the cutest on TV right now, and challenging the relationship among our protagonists while affirming their familial bond. Like I said, it's very reliable. This one's short and sweet, but that's what happens when I talk about this show every year. Only Murders in the Building has cracked the code on how to tackle a story more or less the same way every time, but shake up what you need to keep it fresh and interesting, while being very, very, very funny along the way. As long as they keep making the show as well as they have for the past 5 seasons, it will always have a spot on this list. Number 6. The Residence. I'm kind of glad I've been able to continue this tradition of finding new detective-led stories to put on these lists. That's not intentional, mind you, it's just been a solid few years for the genre if you know where to look. Admittedly, I hadn't heard much about this miniseries outside of the late night circuit, and the trailer didn't really impress me, so I was ready to skip it. But I'm glad I gave it a chance, and if you haven't, I would encourage you to do so. This was a hoot. So, The Residence follows the detective, played by the iconic Uzo Aduba, who was called to solve a murder that was committed in the White House. Don't worry though, this was filmed in 2024, this series has a unique president, and he's gay. Already a way better reality than the one we're currently living in. But the White House is still a mess of cliques, conspiratory behavior, and clashes between generations. This has such an amazing cast of characters. Not only do they get a superb group of actors together, but it's one of those stories where every character you're introduced to is more dysfunctional than the last. I love Me a Mystery with a huge cast of eccentric suspects, and this one has a group that is both vastly entertaining and informs the setting of where this all occurred and why it might have. The Residence has such a precise and engaging way of unraveling its mystery. It kind of reminds me of an Ace Attorney game where the most minute detail or contradiction could lead to something much larger down the line. Presented through some fantastic editing and design work elevating both the comedy and investigation, the architecture and procedures surrounding the White House become a fantastic setting for a murder mystery, and led by Aduba's wonderful detective character, Cordelia Cupp. She's got a lot of the typical archetypes a PI like this tends to have, but I don't think I need to point out how infrequently characters like this look like Aduba. It's refreshing and familiar all at the same time, and I enjoyed every minute of it. Where Only Murders in the Building is my old reliable, The Residence was a delightful surprise. Number 5. Pluribus. If there's one thing I've learned from when the golden age of television was occurring, it's that if Vince Gilligan is leading a series, you pay attention. Pluribus is the story of Carol, a successful yet frustrated author who winds up being one of the few people on the planet not affected by a virus that turns all of humanity into a hive mind. She then spends the whole series navigating this new reality and maybe attempting to reverse it. Gotta admit, I'm not usually a fan of these last person on Earth style stories. I find the concept boring and repetitive at best and kind of anxiety inducing at worst. But Pluribus does a lot to keep the concept utterly fascinating, with a weird blend of genuine terror and unnerving humor to the whole thing. Apparently the series was being pitched as the most miserable person on Earth must save the world from happiness, and yeah, that sums it up pretty nicely. I was thoroughly impressed by how often I could not figure out where this show was going, and how many avenues they take Carol down as she tries to understand and work around this unprecedented situation. Even the hive mind itself is a really fascinating character. Their demeanor, their philosophy, they are incapable of direct harm, yet force billions of people into a way of life that strips them of all their individuality. They want to make Carol happy, but their mere existence makes her agitated and miserable, until maybe it doesn't. It's amazing how many angles they explore this premise from, mostly from the point of view of a single character. With a magnificent performance by Rhea Seehorn, this is at least 70% of the reason why this series and Carol work as well as they do, making me feel so deeply for someone who many could see as the most unlikable character of the year. It's so amazing to see Seehorn finally get some award recognition after how much her time on Better Call Saul was wrongfully ignored. She deserves every ounce of praise, as does the rest of the series. A tale exploring themes of resilience and individuality in the face of persistent and overwhelming doubt over things you were once so sure of. It's a slow burn, admittedly, but I think that's by design. Nowhere does the phrase, "you can't change the world overnight," apply more than it does on Pluribus. Every choice they make with this series is the most interesting choice they could have made, and I was kind of shocked to realize that this wasn't a self-contained series. There's more to come and more questions in the air. If the few who remain can truly change things, or if humanity is doomed to live in autonomous joy. Pluribus wound up being a nice little gem of a show from one of the best showrunners of the 21st century. I guess I shouldn't be surprised when I put it like that, but this just proves that Gilligan's talents exceed the world of Breaking Bad, and that is such a relief. Number 4. Thunderbolts. Asterisk. I know some on the interweb would disagree, but I'd say Marvel had a pretty solid year in 2025. Sam Cat finally made it to the big screen, the Fantastic Four got a movie that was genuinely really good, and it only took 4 tries, but most would agree that there was one project that stood out. One film that went the extra mile to push the boundary of what a superhero story could do just a little bit further. And that film was Thunderbolts. What could have just been Marvel's answer to Suicide Squad turns into a solid exploration of some characters in the MCU who were demonized for having a rough break. All encouraged or forced to take more brutal and vengeful directions with their abilities to thrive or survive, and all trying to make a change around the same time. All while being manipulated by an entirely new mastermind, starting the cycle yet again with a new and far more powerful victim. Bob. It's really well written and does a great job depicting these less easy-to-like characters. Aside from Yelena and Bucky, naturally, they're always fan favorites for a reason. Real talk, this might be pitched as a team film, but this is Yelena's movie through and through, and she deserves every second in that spotlight. I was blown away by the places this movie was willing to go, the themes it explored, and the stylish methods it used to present this conflict. A lot of people were joking that this looks like an indie movie, but they were doing so as a compliment, and they're kinda right. It's more grounded with minimalist locations and a slower journey to get from point A to point B. There are still high-level superhero moments, but they're used more sparingly, which means when they hit, they hit. It's not good because it's dark. It's good because in order to explore characters like this, their history, their direction, and what their choices will be collectively, you're gonna wind up in some dark places. And the movie doesn't shy away from that. The true struggles some have to fight for freedom and happiness, but through the lens of a superhero story, showing that there is hope, even if it feels like you'll never stop fighting. Someone out there will understand, and in finding them, you might just be less lonely together. To me, Thunderbolts is a good example of having a long wait be worth it. The events of this movie have been slowly brewing for quite a few years now, resulting in an absolutely incredible payoff that still has exciting places to go. This is the kind of thing that keeps me excited about the MCU, even with longer waits for payoffs these days. It did admittedly do a couple things that bugged me, but while they aren't nitpicks, they don't take away from the incredible strengths of this movie. I can't wait to give this one its own review. There's so much more to say about it. Of all of Marvel's projects this year, this was unquestionably the best. Number 3. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. I bet some of you are wondering where this would place on the list. I've made it no secret that I am a big fan of Frankenstein. It's my favorite book of all time. I've made several videos about various adaptations and how most of them mess something up. I am a full Frankenstan and proud of it. So when news broke that none other than Guillermo del Toro was attempting to put his own spin on the classic tale, people were very eager to tell me, and I was very eager to listen. Was this the faithful adaptation I've been waiting for? Did the modern monster movie maker craft the definitive version of Frankenstein and the modern Prometheus?
You serious?
This is very much the story of Frankenstein, with Del Toro's classic artistic and reflective look at it. It is probably the most traditional take on a classic monster Del Toro has ever done. I assume because Frankenstein and his creation are already very sympathetic creatures, so you don't need to reverse engineer it as much to get a new heart to the story. But exploring this iconic pair drives the momentum of the story more than most versions I've seen. Naturally, because it's a Del Toro project, this movie is gorgeous, with beautifully realized costume and set pieces from the most bombastic laboratory to the most subdued little cottage. The performances, especially from our leads, Oscar Isaac and Jacob Elordi, are exceptional at bringing two of my favorite characters to life, and it's probably the most contemplative piece surrounding this story I've ever seen. There's a lot of deep moments between or within the characters, bringing about some fascinating connections and pondering the questions the story of Frankenstein is meant to pose in superb ways. But the best thing this movie does is how it frames the story. Hearing the story from Victor's point of view, then from the creatures, both of whom state their tragic tale to the ship captain, Robert Walton. Anyone who's talked to me much about Frankenstein knows how much it annoys me how often Walton's story to the Arctic is sidelined or straight up cut from adaptations, because I feel it's a crucial viewpoint on the story. So to have the framing of this version center on Walton as a vital third party was important to me on an indescribable level. So if it's so great, why isn't it number one? Like I think some of you might have thought it would be. Because, dear viewers, I am an annoying purist when it comes to this particular story, and there were tweaks and changes that bothered me or felt unnecessary. But this is a case where what it gets right, it gets really right. The themes of the story, and in the classic Del Toro way, giving it a warmer heart. The tragic cautionary tale I'm deeply familiar with that has one of the most hopeful endings I've ever seen from an adaptation that in no way hurts what came before, but elevates it to new levels. It's not a perfect adaptation by any stretch, but it is a fantastic Frankenstein film. And as a longtime fan, I feel so honored that such a magnificent filmmaker gave his signature touch to this timeless story and breathed new life into it. Number 2. K-Pop Demon Hunters. This is one of those rare movies that 1,000,000% lived up to the hype. And I waited way too long to join in on said hype. I avoided K-Pop Demon Hunters for the longest time. I don't care about K-pop. It's not my genre. I didn't think I'd care about this. But the bigger it got, the more unavoidable it was, and while I was curious about why this was taking over the world, I was also scared I'd be the weird one who wouldn't get it once I did watch it. I kept putting it off, more of my friends watched it and begged me to. Eventually, Wings stepped in and streamed it on his Discord after he watched it Thanksgiving weekend. This was my reaction halfway through the first song. I'm just gonna say the same stuff everyone else has said about this movie, so we'll just bullet point this one. The premise is a brilliant incorporation of modern K-pop trends into Korean mythology and history. The main cast is a delightful, diverse, and endearing group of female leads, which is always deeply refreshing. The songs are beautiful, insanely catchy, and quickly join my regular rotation. The animation is jaw-dropping in its style and movement, proving that Sony is learning the right lessons from Spider-Verse's success, thank God. It's a magnificent appropriation of fandom culture that does poke fun, but it's probably the least mean-spirited depiction I've ever seen, and it portrays beautiful themes of authenticity and change through progress and acceptance. It's the kind of movie where if you're not thinking, okay, I get what all the hype is about in the first 5 minutes, nothing else in it is going to convince you. But once it hooks you in with the fun, it will take you on a wonderfully insightful journey. The kind of story that I'm so thrilled to see resonate with audiences of all ages and backgrounds. I could see people calling it overrated, but if this is the kind of film that connects with audiences so powerfully on a global scale, in my eyes, that can only be a good thing. The only reason it is not number one on this list is because there's some areas where I think the climax drops the ball. It's an amazing final battle, and the song is my favorite in the movie, but I feel like the way they deal with the demons falls short of living up to the questions posed through the rest of the movie. Luckily, it is something we could build on in future installments, which we will be getting, no doubt. I'm sure a day is gonna come where people are sick of seeing the name Huntrix, and that K-pop Demon Hunters will join the collective of franchises that people will point to and say, make something original. But this is the originality everyone has been crying for. It is fresh, it is fun, it is exciting, and it means something to the world at large. If there's one word to describe the experience, it would be golden. Oh yeah, I went there. As usual, before we get to number 1, let's go over some honorable mentions. Stranger Things Season 5. In this year's installment of, I don't know, I liked it, we have Stranger Things. Look, I get it. The show got too big for its britches, they went way over the top, the finale didn't have any Demogorgons, Will's coming out scene was messy, fine. But I still had a good time with this series and got that warm, fuzzy feeling when the finale wrapped up. Maybe it's because it's one of the few shows I can talk about with my entire family, maybe it's because other finales disappointed me so severely that even something that was pretty good felt amazing. But yeah, I loved watching Stranger Things. Still a fan. Probably gonna marathon it again someday. Doctor Who Series 2. Or 15 maybe? I don't know anymore. If we were just talking about episodes 1 through 5, this would have been on the list and high up. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. To me, Series 2 contains some of the best episodes of Modern Who and a few new favorites for me. The problem is that it also contains some of the worst. Like, you know that thing I was saying 10 seconds ago about finales that deeply disappointed me? Yeah, this is what I was talking about. Calling the show's very future into question as the RTD2 era implodes in on itself. But while the finale destroyed a lot of the goodwill towards this era, and especially this season, I think it's important to acknowledge all the new, creative avenues they told stories across time and space from this season. So that's why it gets acknowledged here at least. Please watch Series 2 if you haven't already. Finish the story in the engine, and then pretend it stops there. Nobody wants this, Season 2. A show with the most ironic title in history because everyone should want this kind of series. This to me is the peak of what the modern rom-com can do, taking a real and believable look at the peaks and valleys of a relationship using comedy and wit to make it entertaining. This show has had so many opportunities to be contrived, and it has dodged every single one of them. Not to mention it's got a stellar cast. Like, Kristen Bell especially is batting 1,000. She could do no wrong. I enjoyed Season 1 and was thoroughly impressed with how things were handled in Season 2. I also want to shout out Season 4 of both Ghosts and Abbott Elementary, both top-tier network comedies. I do think Season 3 of both of them suffered due to the strikes a couple years back, but both recovered very nicely for their fourth seasons, taking things in interesting directions and assuring they have well-written moments of sincerity. It made me a lot more optimistic about both shows after something of a dip, reminded me how good they are and how much they can take advantage of their respective premises. Pokemon Horizons, The Search for Laqua. Fun fact, this one got booted from the main list because I miscounted the entries. It broke my heart a bit to do that because I think this latest season of Pokemon Horizons is where it really hits its stride. The characters have grown and evolved rather nicely, sometimes literally, and the story has some great revelations, exploring more of this mysterious history in a way that was interesting and satisfying to watch unfold. There were a couple times where I was on the edge of my seat in suspense, and considering I'm watching Pokemon in my 30s, I feel like it's doing something right if it's doing that. If you were waiting for Pokemon Horizons to get into gear, pick it back up. This is where it happens. Now, let's get to the big reveal. My number one favorite piece of entertainment from 2025 is Wake Up Dead Man. I'm gonna be honest, this might be my most underwhelming number one yet. Most of the time, my favorite entertainment of the year speaks to me deeply or latches onto my brain for weeks, if not months on end. Wake Up Dead Man does not fit either of those categories. It's just a good movie. So why is it number one? Simple. With nearly everything else I loved in 2025, where I agreed with so many who were praising a movie or a show, there was always one or two things that knocked it down for me. Something that, as excellent as the rest was just enough of a problem that I couldn't put it at the top. Not so for Wake Up Dead Man. Oh, I'm sure there are those who would argue it has flaws, but at the end of the year, Wake Up Dead Man was the most satisfied I was with a story this year. No major hurdles, no missed opportunities. It has all the stuff the other two movies featuring Benoit Blanc did and more, and it's great. But I do think there are some things here that not necessarily elevate this from the other two, but go new places with the formula to add more investment in this particular story. They play around with the expectations surrounding the large cast of people played by a great group of actors. Josh Brolin and Josh O'Connor are particular standouts as a dichotomous pair of clergies within this rural New York church. It does have a second act twist, but many more reveals after that kept me guessing where this was all going more than the previous two. While you can probably figure out who the main culprit is if you understand certain conventions in this genre, they do give it a worthwhile payoff, and our accused main character gets a lot more one-on-one time with Blanc than in movies past, resulting in a lot of thoughtful and personal scenes between the two. That's the thing that ultimately makes Wake Up Dead Man stand out. It relies on a lot of the same things that made Knives Out and Glass Onion work, but realize that in order to keep making these movies, they have to make the proceedings a bit more challenging on a personal level. The story behind how this mystery came about is far more tragic than the other movies, and it's the most challenging case we've seen for Blanc personally so far, questioning his methods, how he handles a case, and even, to an extent, his relationship with faith. but in a thoughtful way, not in a preachy way. It just affirms that there is always more to do with this particular film series. I reiterate that I want them to keep making these movies for as long as Daniel Craig and Rian Johnson will do them. Wake Up Dead Man continues the franchise's track record of being intelligent, insightful, witty, and just fun to watch, proving that they can stick to what works about these movies while not being afraid to approach things in ways that are a bit more thoughtful for the participants, and I'm always appreciative of that. When I finished it, I had no major qualms with it. It's just a really good movie. And that was the deciding factor that makes Wake Up Dead Man my favorite piece of entertainment from 2025. It is too early to tell what will be the best of the best for next year's list, but that's part of the fun. I look forward to doing this again next year, as I do every year, preferably before spring next time. I need to work on that, I know. Thanks for watching, everyone. Definitely know what you thought of the list and what your favorite piece of entertainment was from 2025 in the comments below. That's why the series is called Let's Talk About. I want to give a very special thanks to my patrons who help support my content, including Jinx Productions and Wait in the Wings. If you'd like to join these fine people in supporting my content while getting cool exclusive perks, you can check out my Patreon page at the link in the description, as well as my other social media if you'd like to check any of those. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you guys next time.